Another week in the NBA begins today with our Monday NBA slate for today, November 3rd. And the work begins as it always does here on the Splash Play channel. We're going to dig in and compare my projections to one of the industry leaders out there, our friends over at Stokastic. We'll see what my data thinks, mostly with rates that reference this season versus their longer term projections. What are the differences? Who's standing out? You'll find out here. We'll also sort by the top plays, the value plays. We'll check out ownership along the way. We'll go game by game. We'll run a sim on Stokastic with just their data so you can see what they think without my involvement. By this video, you'll know all my splash plays along with the industry's must plays for today's NBA slate. Let's get into it, and I hope it was a good weekend for you guys. I was on the Saturday NBA show. I did not have a great NBA day on Saturday, but it wasn't bad thanks to Quentin Jackson. Quentin Jackson going to be an important player on today's slate as well, but the big thing in NBA on days like today where we have an NFL slate going as well, do you think it's a little bit easier to find your way up top in these lineups? Same thing for Sundays if you guys do play those days for NBA. I usually just focus on NFL on Sundays, but in general, hopefully our miles carry us a little bit further, our efforts carry us a little bit further on these days where there's NFL going on because less people paying full attention like they would otherwise. And shout out for Steven being here. Appreciate all you guys, whether you are watching live or after the fact, and appreciate you guys. Familiar faces here as always. I'm the only familiar face that you see on the screen though, but I do appreciate you guys being here and all the love for the channel as well as we are getting this revived again after a few months off in NBA. We are now in week 3? This is week 3, I think, of the NBA season. So keep hitting that like button, keep subscribing, guys. And if you want to see the same data I show you here on screen, join the channel at one of the Squirt Squad memberships down below. But today, Luka Doncic not on our main slate on DraftKings, but for people playing other slates, he's a top projected player I have overall. He's been going nuts lately. He's got a 63-point projection for me. For Luka Doncic at this point, way too cheap at the 11.5 salary for the DraftKings late slate, but also his fantasy production has, in my opinion, been the best in the league so far. I mean, at least right up there with Wemby and Giannis briefly, but Luka holding steady right now at 1.8 fantasy points spent on the year with a 39% usage rate, 40% assist rate, so taking about 80% of the possessions when he's on the court and being very good doing it. Luka looks great, but unfortunately he's not on DraftKings today, so I won't spend a ton of time talking about him. But my boy, my son Luka, I'm sure so proud. I actually should probably show him Luka highlights or something. I should try to start getting him indoctrinated to realize, oh, this guy has your name and he's really fucking good at basketball right now. Nurkic Knight 2.0. It is indeed, though. Busted his chalk yesterday. Nurkic, though, looking like a very strong play again with Walker Kessler assumed out. Giannis, we got an 11.8 salary on him. He is on our slate, so he matters. I've at 61.8 fantasy points today. Stokastic has him at 60.5. As a result, actually, they're still getting him more in their ownership. 19% expected ownership. I only got 15% Giannis in the sim I ran before the show. If I had to guess, it's probably because my projections were for a little more balanced build, but for Giannis, still a player that we know has the big upside at that price tag, facing Indiana today, and maybe that means more assist opportunities to Miles Turner. Maybe it means more usage flows a guy like Miles Turner's way in the revenge game for him coming up against his old team. That apparently there was some acrimony about him leaving because they didn't seem to want to give him enough money or whatever the case may be. Either way, for Giannis, still seems like a strong play no matter what. He'll get his shots up even if Miles Turner takes a few more. He is averaging 1.93 fantasy points a minute, so a little bit better than what we just talked about with Luka Doncic to start the year. And he's doing it with more rebounding, similar usage, 35% usage rate, 40% assist rate, so killing a similar amount of possessions. Giannis, I think, looks good today. I am surprised I'm not getting him very much, given the fact I have him better projected than Jokic today. But that said, really not getting Jokic very much or Giannis, I guess, paying down mostly for Siakam, who has a decent projection for me at 49.6. But if I can afford Giannis in lineups, I would like to get him more. I do think when I put my final lineups in, just going off my projections a little bit more, I'll probably get to 20% Giannis, and I think that's enough. But if there's value that opens up that allows me to get some more Giannis, I'd be happy to do it. I think he's a very strong play. It just happens to be that there's enough strong plays that are a little bit cheaper than him. For Nikola Jokic, he is less well projected than Giannis for me today, and part of that, I think, is reflecting this year's performance so far. Jokic has been down a little bit, and I don't think it's his fault. I think it's because Jamal Murray hasn't back to normal, and that's sort of where we see the upside creep away a little bit from Jokic. But Jokic averaging 1.61 fantasy points a minute, so for comparison, last year was Giannis more at where Jokic is so far this year. Jokic is putting up 1.8, 1.9, especially in games when Jamal Murray was banged up, as he was very often the beginning parts of last year. For Jokic, though, It's a high total against Sacramento. Very winnable matchup going against Sabonis and Drew Eubanks and really awful centers across the board, or, not defensively minded centers that could do anything to impede Nikola Jokic. But as long as Murray keeps holding on to about a 30% usage rate, 25% assist rate, the guys in the wing still getting shots up, Valanciunas still playing about 13 to 15 minutes a game. That's enough for him to be in the mix and, producing well for the minutes he's out there, not in the same way as Jokic, but in classic J-Val fashion. It's all resulting in Jokic not coming up as much for me here. So 14% for the field. I got him at 5. It's on a slate where the pay-up options are going to define the slate, it seems like, on DraftKings. It's only combined 32% ownership for these two. But if you get to either, I wouldn't begrudge it. It just seems like a more balanced build is coming up more naturally in projections, and that can increase the tournament upside for playing Giannis, playing Jokic above the field. But Jokic, I just he's playing a little bit less good than I would have expected. Still shooting well, true shooting's there for him. He's just not producing as much because he's now got a lot of guys producing around him, and I don't think it's a great thing. Pascal Siakam, he is another guy that's up for me here. We'll say last game over the weekend, Quentin Jackson, who's going to come up when we sort by value in a moment, played his ass off. I think he put up 57 fantasy points in that game, had, I believe, 10 plus assists, something like 30 points. Had a crazy day overall. It takes some upside away from Siakam, who's basically his biggest skill right now in Indiana is that he gets the ball a lot, can get a lot of shots up and do whatever he wants with it. For Siakam, though, at 9,500, still think there's upside there. He's producing overall this year so far at a 1.3 fantasy point per minute pace. Relative to the matchup today against Milwaukee, the team total and who's available, I'd have him closer to 1.5 today. I think it's still a good spot to go to Siakam. Still won't be as good as when he was 8K for a while with all the injuries that occurred for Indiana. But Siakam, 15% for the field. I'm getting him at 17. And I do think when I run my final outs tonight, I probably get him a little bit more because of the fact he still projects it well enough for me. But for Stokastic, it's getting pretty close to him not being a great value with where his price tag is. Austin Reeves and James Harden on the late slate. I'm not going to talk a lot about them because I'm trying to make these videos a little tighter timeline-wise. So if they're on the late slate, just know they project well for me. And right now, the Luka Austin Reeves 1-2 punch for fantasy really strong because they don't have a lot of other guys that get shots up on that team. Jalen Brunson, a 47.5 projection for me, again, reflecting mostly what he's doing so far this year. Basically, what I'm doing in my data, which you guys won't care about, but I'll say it out loud in case anybody out there does care. I'm still doing the longer-term projection where per 100 possession numbers is how I build everything off of. I have data going back to last year where it's counting all that, but I'm now weighting the games from this year as 4. So most teams have played 5 or 6 games. That means that they played 82 games last year. This year, in my data, they've played the equivalent of 24 games, something like that. If they played 6 already, 4 times more. Hopefully that makes sense. But the biggest thing that I do is I'm taking the rates from this season. So they're not stable yet. Rates stabilize at about 1,000 possessions, and most teams have played about 450 to 500 possessions overall. So that's something where, I'm taking a leap of faith a little bit more, and I mentioned this on the Discord over the weekend. Taking a leap of faith a little bit more to try to get guys early as opposed to be late on guys whose situations have changed, especially overall in situations where there's a lot of guys who've been injured to start the year. What did this new team situation look like that didn't exist last year? It's kind of what I'm trying to capture. Point being is that Brunson right now is benefiting from the Knicks right now, where he's getting more usage than he did last year. And he obviously played really well, but he's up to 33.5% usage, and everybody else on the team is under 25% now. And that's a difference from last year, where it was Towns and Brunson, Brunson over 30, Towns at high 20s. Now we're talking Towns low 20s, Brunson only guy over 30, and it's up even further. Everything is going through Brunson's hands. So, and that's could be Josh Hart coming off the bench a little bit too. But I think for Brunson, he looks like a different player now. These are the guys I want to be a little bit above the field on generally. So I'm getting 20% Brunson, Fields at 13. It is a decent enough price tag for Brunson, but also with how he's playing a 1.3 fantasy point per minute pace at a reasonable 60% true shooting. If he keeps that up and he goes nuts against Washington, the ceiling's higher, the price tag could get higher. I think Brunson might end up being a 9K guy soon, so the price tag's up for him, but I think deservedly so, based on how he's played so far this year and what the underlying rates are for this year too. Lauri Markkanen, same thing. Don't think you'll get him with a longer-term sample size. That's why my projection is 45.4. Stokastic has him at 37.5. You get the benefit today of likely not having Walker Kessler again, but also for Lauri Markkanen, At this point, he's putting up 1.3 fantasy points a minute on 30% usage, assisting a little bit, rebounding a little bit. He's looking pretty good, shooting a little bit better than he will over the course of a year so far. With 63% true shooting, he should be probably like high 59, 60 if he plays really well. But he's still, it's sustainable. It's not that far off. For Marketing, I think he's currently establishing himself. He and Keontae George both on that team, establishing themselves at a higher tier of player. And that's sort of what, again, same thing I'm trying to capture by focusing more on the rates for these guys. We're still capturing like how Lauri Markkanen played last year, but now because he's getting more shots up, like let's say if Lauri Markkanen last year was a 20% usage rate guy, because this year he's at 30, I'm giving him a 50% boost in his production because it was at 20 last year, now it's at 30. So that's going to make these guys project higher for me. And I'm mostly explaining this for you guys that are using the data in tournaments right now. Just be mindful of the fact, like I would say for you guys out there that want to be more conservative, split my projection with an average of whatever, Stokastic, Roto Grinders, any free data source out there. It might be a way to do that because Marketing this year is outplaying everything he's done historically. And that tracks for me. Like he should be getting better because he's a guy a lot of star teams, championship caliber teams want to trade for right now. He's playing like it so far. So market at 8,100. Don't you'll get him a lot with Stokastic data, only 3% expected ownership. In my data, I got him at 11%. Karl Anthony Towns, again, not quite as good this year as he was last year. As a result, my projection coming down slightly for him. And of course, last season, I had him so much above pretty much the industry the entire time, every game he played. Made me feel crazy, but he kept paying off. This year, it's looking a little bit less good for him. The usage down a little bit. He's only averaging 1.104 fantasy points per minute. And you do have Mitchell Robinson out today, so that's going to help him a little bit more. Actually, you know what? That might be the wrong number for Towns. 1.22, my bad. But it's coming down a little bit for him in a way where for Towns, he needs to be the center at this point to not have Mitchell Robinson in because his usage is down enough that he might not get the same scoring role he's had historically. So for Towns, I think he's still a good play. Field's at 37%. I'm at 28. It's rare for me to be under the field on Towns. I do think right now, though, love the matchup going against Washington. Like that's an easy one you'd expect. Sarr is at best a similar version of Towns. I think for him, he's in a good situation, but the projection and how the data is running so far for this year, I don't think Towns is playing as well as last year. I was like really playing him a ton. I don't love seeing his numbers go down because of how he's played so far this season. But that's the case. Julius Randle, I think people think he's a lock. I know in Stokastic on Saturday, one of the guys immediately in chat's like, Julius Randle's a lock right now. No Anthony Edwards. He's playing really well, but you are in a spot against Brooklyn where the total's not terribly high for Minnesota. I think Randle's a strong play, 8% ownership. I think that might be a little bit light relative to the field, but I'm getting him at 10. I've got Randle projected about 2.5 fantasy points higher than Stokastic does. He's playing really well to start the year, 1.3 fantasy point per minute pace, the best on the T-Wolves without Ann out there. I think Randle's solid. I mean, I think he'll come up in more of my lineups than he did in the sim. But basically, to me, this is part of why I don't think it's as much of a Giannis Jokic slate. Is because Siakam projects decently enough. Brunson does. Markkanen does. Towns does. Randle does. These guys with their 2025 outlook so far are looking a lot better than they may in sort of the longer-term sample of projections. Jalen Duren getting 62%. That's another guy at 7K who's been going nuts this year. Detroit has played 6 games already. And Cade Cunningham, I think I'm a little bit light on projection-wise. I have 7 fantasy points lower than Stokastic. That doesn't feel great. But part of it is that Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson are playing incredibly well to start the year. Duren is playing at a 1.5 fantasy point per minute pace, including a 22% rebound rate, 25% usage rate. He's not really goosing anything with assists too much. That would be unsustainable probably for him. I think Duren is one of those guys who's making a leap this year, and the spot versus Memphis is really nothing to worry about. They play with decent pace, and they really have no bigs who would kind of impede what Jalen Duren does. There are times where he gets in foul trouble or just things go badly for him and he loses minutes, but he's played like 33 minutes the game before last. Even the last game, he didn't get 30. Still had a monster fantasy day. I think Duren's in a good situation right now, and I think he's made a leap upwards. So I'm going to be a lot there today. 2x the field for me right now. Let's sort by value next. And this is where things get weird, guys. So Quentin Jackson. I talked about Quentin Jackson a couple times over the last week. Touted him on Saturday because he's coming up in my data because he's starting now for the Pacers. He went nuts on Saturday. Like, again, put up, we can look at the popcorn machine real fast too, because this does help a little bit. Of course, popcornmachine.net if you want to see these little charts that I'm showing you here. This is not mine. It's the site that does it for itself. Quentin Jackson played 31 minutes here, put up 25 points, 19 peripherals. I believe that was like 13 assists, something like that. He was the player that I wanted Ray J. Dennis to be in terms of setting up the offense, except he also hunted for a shot. And the downside was for Siakam, felt like he had the ball less. Aaron Nesmith, you see, put up 31 points here. He had a really good day because Quentin Jackson was the one he's finding on a lot of his assists. But basically, it looks a little bit worse for Siakam if Quentin Jackson plays like this. But Quentin Jackson is like super explosive, gets to bring the ball up, hunts for his own shot, attacks the rim, will jack up threes, will also crash the boards a little bit. I like Quentin Jackson a lot. If you again go longer term here, and you're also, weighting the other guys a little more for what they haven't done so far this year, that'd probably take some projection away from Quentin Jackson. But right now to start the year, he's at a 1.25 fantasy point per minute pace with 21% usage and a 31% assist rate. The shooting is not sustainable, 69% true shooting. But I think the other things are, at least until the rotation fleshes out more and you get Mathurin back in, you get Nembhard back in, you get, any sort of legit guys, McConnell back in. Like that's when Quentin Jackson, I think, comes back to being more of a 3-and-D guy. But much like Jarris Walker has before, I think the situation's changed for Quentin Jackson, and I do think he's a really good play today. Again, playing probably a little bit above his head right now, but I think it's possible that he plays more like 30 minutes, and even if he produces closer to 1 fantasy point per minute at 4,700, I think that's enough for you on the slate to open up some value. So big stand on Quentin Jackson. You don't need to be this heavy on it. Play him at 25% if you want, but I'm going to be in 68% of my top 150 lineups in the sim. Stokastic has him at 14%. The projection as well, about 12 fantasy points lower for Stokastic than me. So they're really saying he's not this guy. I'm saying I saw him play. I've seen him play this year. I've somehow watched a lot of Pacers games because I keep having him on DFS slates. He's aggressive. Like he really athletic, goes at the rim. He's honestly been good before, even when he was just like a 3-and-D guy for them, when the rotation's a little bit more full. But he's kind of like that, like Bruce Brown type, where Bruce Brown before, when he's playing in a team like Denver, he doesn't do a whole lot right now. But if you take guys off, he becomes a guy that starts assisting, rebounding a bunch. And that's how I view Quentin Jackson. So dying on the hill of Quentin Jackson today, it seems. And he's starting, and that's a positive. Like it's not a bench guy we're trying to hold out hope for. If Ray J. Dennis is also out, he's a questionable tag right now as of 2:15 p.m. Then it would also make Quentin Jackson even better of a play. Talon Peter would be in the mix a little bit more, but he's not particularly good so far. We talked about the use of Nurkic chalk at the beginning of the video that failed over the weekend. That said, getting use of Nurkic again today. 32 fantasy points is my projection. Stokastic has him at 28. That's enough for 41% expected ownership in their data. I'm getting him at 56. Nurkic, let's look at the rotations real fast. Going against Charlotte. So Nurkic started here, got about a 6-minute stint, came back in, no foul trouble, didn't close the second half. Looks like they went small for Kyle Anderson here. Or didn't close the first half, rather. Second half, he did start, picked up a foul. They took him out. Kevin Love came in for him. And Kevin Love then played a little bit at the end. Excuse me, guys. I feel like I have something stuck in my throat. My bad. I have to keep muting here. So for Nurkic, look, the hope would be that he plays better. He is generally a guy who's averaging like 1.22 fantasy points a minute so far this year. Walker Kessler leaves behind a pretty valuable role. I would think Nurkic plays better than he did yesterday, like especially at shooting, putting up only 3 points. Like if he takes some of those Walker Kessler threes that have been there this year, it should be better. That's it for Nurkic. It does feel like Kevin Love might be a little bit of a pivot in certain situations. Actually, sorry, I don't mean to jump back and forth, but real fast. Kevin Love came in when the game was like out of hand. So they brought Kevin Love in for shooting. If the Jazz don't get smoked, you might just, or if Nurkic is playing well enough, I guess, it might go hand in hand. You might get Nurkic coming in for more. But otherwise, it's going to be Kevin Love as direct backup. I would say, too, if you wanted to play Kevin Love, he only played 15 minutes yesterday. You could try to get away with playing Kevin Love as like your pivot point, and if he just outscores Nurkic, That's one way to vault the field. But Nurkic clearly an important part of thing. I said that totally backwards. Important part of things, not an important port of things. Important part of things with 41% field ownership. I'm at 56. And I think for Nurkic, still a play you want to get some of. But I think if you don't play him, being open to Kevin Love, or just recognizing that if he plays less minutes, it probably means the Jazz got smoked, and that's why he's not on the court. Jalen Duren, a top value for me at 77K salary. Again, the projection's really high for me. He's playing incredibly well to start the year. Probably due for regression, but I don't want to be lower than the field's 30% expected for Jalen Duren. Josh Minott, my projection's really high for him today at 30. I think that's because there's some peripherals to go around for Minott today, relative to the matchup. That said, for Minott, he is still playing at above a 1 fantasy point per minute pace, actually at 1.06 now. So playing well for himself. There just isn't a real center of note for Boston. Kata's out there. Luka Garza's out there, and neither of them is grabbing a ton of rebounds. Right now, Minott is actually still the number 2 rebounder on the team, relative to rate data. So it's a big part of it. Rebounds being there, scoring upside being there, all looks good. I'm getting a third of my lineups. Fields at 19%. So Minott, chalky play today. I think deserves the chalkiness. Yeah, that said, the price tag at 4,800 definitely coming up enough where he's not a must-have. This guy is really not great at anything. He just does a little bit of everything. Michael Porter Jr., big stand for me here, 4x the field. Porter Jr. has been playing really well to start the year, putting up 1.16 fantasy points a minute, along with 27% usage, a 15% rebound rate, 16% assist rate, basically doing a little bit of everything in a way he wasn't allowed to do in Denver, and it kind of seems like him is starting to play with the studio space a little bit more. He'll get tough defense today going against Minnesota. He might have McDaniels on him. Somebody's going to take Cam Thomas, but it'd be nice if you got Randall on him, I think. That'd probably help him out a little bit more. That said, for Michael Porter Jr., he's been the best Nets player. He's the only one on the team, besides Day'Ron Sharpe, averaging over 1 fantasy points per minute, because now that Cam Thomas is shooting like shit again. So for Porter Jr., playing well, he honestly looks like the biggest net on the court a lot of the time, too. That helps him out a little bit. Easy for him to get a shot whenever he wants because of that size and the fact there's nobody else taking shots away from him besides shitty Cam Thomas. So me, Porter Jr., single-digit own, play him a little bit, but I'm getting him 4x the field. D'Angelo Russell, got no Anthony Davis again, and Russell's been going nuts to start the year. The matchup, again, much like for Porter Jr., you want to raise a flag for it, you can. But Dallas is facing Houston today. That's not great. That said, D'Angelo Russell, 30% usage rate, 40% assist rate to start the year, just shy of 1.2 fantasy points a minute, and that's with shooting pretty poorly at 52% true shooting. So he should shoot a little bit better. He's getting shots up. There's all the shots he kind of wants at this point because AD's not out there, Kyrie's not out there, none of the guys who actually matter are out there, and Cooper Flagg is doing the best he can, but he's not ready to take a ton of possessions away at this point. So Russell, I think he's worth the shot again. Price tag is up at 5,700 now, but I am getting him more than 2x the field. He's in 29% of my lineups. Drew Holiday, late slate, looking okay. Peyton Pritchard, another guy who seems due for better days. Matchup for Boston should be good for everybody, but Pritchard just shooting a little bit cold to start the year at 49% true shooting. That's going to claw up. Same thing for Derek White, who's at 42% true shooting. Matchup versus Utah, who's been one of the worst defenses in basketball, giving up 120 points per 100 possessions. That's a lot of production that's available for Boston potentially. So you want to boost up Jaylen Brown, you can, but it seems to me like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, a little bit too cheap, given the fact they're all projected for over 30 minutes today. I mean, over 32 minutes, really. Nurk should be able to do some things against Kata and Garza, but who knows basketball? That's true. I mean, I would have thought the same against Charlotte, but, he didn't get there. And that was a revenge game for Nurk as well. Asar Thompson getting the boost up here in projection because of how well he's played this year. Really, he and Jalen Duren have taken production away from Cade Cunningham with how good they've been. Asar Thompson, 34.9 is my projection. Stokastic has him at 32.9. But you're going to get him a little bit no matter where you're playing or no matter what data you're using. 27% expected ownership for Thompson. I'm getting him at 33. Ryan Rollins also been playing well for the Bucks. Really, I loved when he was a cheap guy last year. Did not get him very much as a expensive guy lately. But he is projected to play 31 minutes. Seems like he's pulled ahead of Cole Anthony, who's now just kind of the bench option who plays behind him / with him for a few minutes. Rollins is averaging 1.08 fantasy points a minute on a little bit lofty, 65% true shooting. That'll come down. But he is a good shooter. I think he'll still be solid from 3 and all that. The assist upside's been there decently too with 23% assist rate, which is not bad. Not as good as Cole Anthony at 40, but he's still assisting pretty well for a guy who plays most of his minutes with Giannis. I think for Rollins, still a decent play here. Fields at 25, I'm at 29. Not really a big stand. And Taylor Hendricks, not a great value, but he's coming up here because he's still a decent value at 3,400, and he is starting for Utah right now, even though that feels pretty flimsy. I only did one basketball draft for NBA, just not where my head's at. We're going to go game by game here. Before I do that, guys, please do hit that like button. Please subscribe. Goes a long way for me here. Again, I'm just one dude showing you my gambling, whether it's here on the NBA channel. For NFL, same thing as well. Of course, my showdown video out for the day on the @Splash Play Pod channel. But ultimately, all I want to do is just give you guys my read on things, and you can do whatever you want with it. Of course, I come about it earnestly, having won money playing NBA DFS, using my own data. Of course, having spent time as well at Stokastic, doing the best I can to pick things up from them. I think I'm really good at teaching NBA, even though NBA is a tough sport to play every night. And I'm here for you guys Monday to Friday at 2 p.m. So we'll keep doing the work here all season long, and you guys just got to keep hitting that like button, keep subscribing, and of course, check out the sponsors too. Stokastic, 15% off link down below. That's a big one. And of course, if you want to get access to my data here, including this very sheet I'm showing you on the screen, you get join the Discord here. The Squirt Squad tiers will get you access to my projections and this matchup sheet that I'm going to show you here right now. All right. Minnesota 118 implied points, Brooklyn 109. I feel like we've talked about these guys enough already. That said, for oh, hold on, I'm on the wrong. This is actually the public one. Let me go to my one. There we go. We got more stuff on here. You got my sim data on here. You got the Stokastic ownership and data. Basically for Julius Randle, think he's a good play. I question him being 8% owned, but NBA is the most disciplined sport in terms of guys not over-owning players too much. I think the public loves Julius Randle, so it wouldn't shock me to see him be like 10 to 15. The total's not bad for Minnesota, but it is a low-pace spot. And actually a pace down for Minnesota, who already plays slow. Brooklyn plays even slower. But Randle's been really good. Again, averaging 1.3 fantasy points a minute to start the year. I've got him at 1.32 today, but it's not enough to make him come up meaningfully for me on the slate. I'm above the field at 10%, but just not a priority play. And it is the first game on the slate, too, so obviously if you play Randle, you're losing a lot of swappability. Dante DiVincenzo, he's not playing super well, and Mike Conley's taking minutes away. It's a tough combo. That said, for DiVincenzo, he's still out there, still playing starter-level minutes if he plays the 31 minutes projected for him, but not a priority play for me. Rudy Gobert went nuts over the weekend, and people will probably chase that more than 2% ownership. He certainly can go nuts against Brooklyn with how the center play is not very strong, but usually guys will hit shots that are not him, and I don't think it's the likelihood that he puts up a lot of high-scoring games, even if he does, play well DFS-wise and gets you some rebounds, some blocks. Gobert, just not really a play that looks good based on this year's data. But, I have him better projected than Stokastic at 32.1 fantasy points. They're at 31.1. Jaden McDaniels, always a guy that comes up free from Minnesota when Anthony Edwards is out, playing a lot of minutes. The usage is a little bit higher for him as well, because just vacating a guy who gets up so many shots as Ant does. For McDaniels, getting him at 19%, Fields at 9%. Not a big stand today because the price tags come up a lot at 6,400, but he adds peripherals. He can knock down some shots. I always like Jaden McDaniels. Naz Reid, not a factor for me. Conley, not a factor. You could get some Minnesota guys. Total's not bad, but it doesn't seem like a perfect spot. And the fact it's the first game on the slate, not the most appealing thing in the world. All right. Brooklyn 109 implied points here. Oh, fucking come on. There we go. Line it up better. Michael Porter Jr., really the only net that matters meaningfully to me. Tyrese Martin started, and we talked enough about him already. Tyrese Martin started last game for the Nets. Don't think the minutes are particularly secure for him. For Brooklyn, see, Martin started, played 27 minutes. He played a lot of minutes. They bumped, I don't know if Ben Saroff was healthy or not yesterday. He might just be out of the rotation. Igor Dioman still locked into this bench role for him for whatever reason. I don't know why they wouldn't just play him starter level minutes to see what he could do. But they're playing Tyrese Martin. Martin is an okay fantasy producer historically, but I'm not super excited about playing him as crazy chalk as one of the first games of the slate. He'll be 30% owned. I got 19. I liked Tyrese Martin last year sometimes in certain spots. I don't know that I trust him very much in this rotation with Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas taking a ton of touches away. Like, that's not really the spot. I want to go crazy on Tyrese Martin personally. Gobert's been Clax's daddy historically. DVP matters very little to me in anything. You would have to be talking dozens of games for me to care. But sure, the Brooklyn center spot's been soft against a lot of guys. I don't know. You can play it. Again, I think it'll get played more by the field than 2% owned. But Gobert just had a big game last time out. He's going to do it twice in a row. The offense doesn't run through Gobert like that, in my opinion. Milwaukee, 120.5 implied points here. Giannis, top objective player in the slate. We've talked about him. If you're going to be with the field at 19% ownership, that's fine. One of the best fantasy per minute producers to start the year is Giannis right now. Ryan Rollins above the field on him as well by a little bit. Price tag at 5,800 looks pretty good for a guy who is seemingly the starting and closing point guard for Milwaukee at this point. Miles Turner revenge game, 15% expected ownership. Wouldn't shock me to see that be a little bit higher because people love a good revenge game. Going back to Indiana for this one, but Miles Turner's played at a 0.9 fantasy point per minute pace. Definitely is going to shoot better at some point, but I don't like Miles Turner. I don't think is going to be a big part of my night. Indiana on their side, happy to get Siakam a little bit above the field. Happy to get Jarris Walker a little bit above the field as a guy that's playing a lot of minutes right now. All these guys, by the way, shooting terribly to start the year, and that's probably because the shot quality is low from not having a true point guard, and these guys having to create their own shot pretty often. But it also does mean that Indiana's probably due to play a little bit better at some point. If Quentin Jackson, who looked like a really good, legit point guard over the weekend, if he establishes himself as like a legit point guard that can create shots, it's going to get better for these guys, even though Jackson himself might take some usage off the table with how he plays. But these guys all definitely do to shoot better, and Nesmith with Jackson last game actually did start to shoot better in that spot, put up 31 points. Quentin Jackson is the priority play for me, though. Field's only at 14%. It might be a little bit higher than this number they're expecting because I think Stokastic really is for the better, I think, in general for a public company or, a company that creates data for a lot of people. But, like, they're a little too conservative, I think, for some of the stuff with guys like Jackson that, they have one role when the team is fully stocked and it's a different role when there's nobody else left who can create offense. If you look at who Quentin Jackson has been as like a guy who just kind of sits around on the wing and waits for the ball, he should probably be like 14% owned. If you look at that game, just look up Quentin Jackson highlights from over the weekend. You'll see how he played and you'll kind of get it more. It's like almost a Tyrese Maxey-ish, I would say, which is a lot of credit for Quentin Jackson, but he has the potential to play like that in this offense because nobody else can do anything. So I got 68% Quentin Jackson. It's a lot, but these are the kind of stands I'm willing to die on the hill of. Utah, even if it doesn't work out, just that's my play style. Find your own, whatever you want to do. Don't feel like you have to do the exact same thing I do. Really important, I feel like, to say that. Utah, 111.5 implied points here. Getting marketed above the field, but not a lot of ownership for him or Keontae George. Both guys expected to be under 10%. They look much better projected when you're using the rate data for this year where Markin is getting up a lot of shots. Keontae George is getting up shots and creating assists. They've been averaging 1.3 and 1.14 fantasy points a minute, respectively. Kessler should be out, but I didn't take him out of the sheet yet. Collier, I think, is going to be available to make his debut, they said. Not sure if he just takes the Walter Clayton minutes or if it's some sort of split. Could hurt Keontae George, so that's really the main thing, I guess I would say for that. Yusuf Nurkic, good chalk theoretically at 4,800. I'm getting him more than the field at 56% owned. He did bomb out over the weekend, and again, the minutes risk is there. If they get behind meaningfully, they might just bring in Kevin Love to try to shoot some threes, or they could go small and go to Kyle Anderson. But Boston doesn't go small, even though they should too. So I think Nurkic will be out there, and I think it's a good spot, and I'm willing to be there because he didn't kill me yesterday. Boston, and I would be anyway. Even if he killed me yesterday, I'd be back there. Boston, 122 implied points here. Jaylen Brown, not too highly owned at 16%. I'm getting 17. Field's going to be more on Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, who, as I said before, just really do to shoot better here. Jaylen Brown shooting incredibly well. These guys shooting poorly. The assumption for me would be Brown's going to probably shoot a little bit worse at some point. These guys will start to shoot a little bit better. That said, a lot of ownership for Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. So people are here a good amount trying to capture them getting back. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't fade anything here. That's a lot of ownership for Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, given the fact that, results-wise, they just haven't been that good. Due to get better, price tag's coming down. But, they're clearly in the pecking order behind Jaylen Brown in terms of the usage, in terms of the assist rate. The fantasy production will come up closer to 1 and change when they actually hit shots would be my guess. Josh Minot rebounding well. That's really the main thing propping him up. I would project him for 9.2 rebounds today, which might be a little bit high compared to if there's any Josh Minot prop betting markets out there. But 1.06 fantasy points a minute, that stands out. He's not shooting unsustainably well. He's just hustling on a team that lacks guys that grab rebounds or hustle. So for Minot, I'll keep being here at 4,800. Certainly, though, you don't need to be at 33% owned like I am. Fields at 19, though, so it's not that crazy of a stand. Neemias Queta, he's semi a value here. I got him a little bit above the field, but really, a center spot for Boston is just kind of a mess, and I don't really enjoy playing it. Washington really getting nobody here, even though I did give generous projections for Keyshawn George and Alex Sarr. These guys are two guys as well playing better in the 2025 season. 1.2 fantasy points a minute for George, 1.4 for Sarr. Getting Koulibaly in, though, is kind of fucking it up because Koulibaly also tries to hunt for his own shot a little bit more than he should. And he did not shoot as well in game 2 as he did the first time out. For Koulibaly, playable, but I didn't really get him. Alex Sarr, playable, but I got him only with the field. Keyshawn George, a little bit above the field. I still think there is something to Keyshawn George and Alex Sarr in general with their ownership being where it is. But, Washington's crowded. Middleton's a Q tag, so getting him out, I think, would help a little bit. But that would also bring more minutes for Cam Whitmore, and he's going to gun. So it's just Lord of the Flies for Washington is sort of the issue. So you'll get games where Keyshawn George just jacks up a ton of threes, but you want it to be cleared up a little bit as opposed to a bunch of dudes with a 20% plus usage rate. That's what the team is right now. New York, I think we talked about enough earlier on, but basically Brunson getting more shots at the start of the year, assisting the same rate he was last year as well. So he looks like the best Nick, averaging 1.3 fantasy points a minute. Towns has been a little bit worse, taking less usage, but still rebounding at a good rate, and not having Mitchell Robinson today should be good for him to have that center upside where you get more rebounds, more shots at the rim, that kind of stuff. Mikal Bridges, not a guy as a priority for me, but I have to acknowledge he is playing at a 1 fantasy point per minute pace. My projection is also 4.4 fantasy points higher because I am waiting how he's played this year a little bit more. Bridges shooting unsustainably well to start the year, but he's spiking upside occasionally, and he does a little bit of everything. So he's actually averaging, I would have him for 6.4 assists today. So that's crazy. That's more assists than Brunson. I don't know why that is, but it might just be the way the rates are working out. I mean, it has to be because I didn't do anything for it. OG Anunoby, he's playing a little bit under a 1 fantasy point per minute pace, certainly can spike an upside. Basically one of these guys hits, 2 of these guys hit, they pull away from the other guys. You expect it to be Brunson first, Towns second, but if Bridges goes off, Towns gets a little bit worse usually. Brunson gets a little bit worse. That's sort of what that looks like normally. But Josh Hart, at this point, he's a non-factor. His price tag's got to come lower, and he's playing really terribly to start the year with the bench roll. We think McBride starts here, but the Knicks, to me, it's a good total. Think you want a piece here, but I don't think you want to go nuts on ownership because really it's just Towns getting ownership here. But getting a little Brunson because of Towns being so chalky, I think that makes the most sense. Detroit, so my Cade projection's real low, and I think it's just a reflection that number one, Cade shooting pretty poorly to start the year, 50.8% true shooting. But Detroit in this game does have a 120 implied total going against Memphis, who does play at one of the league's fastest paces. 103 possessions per game is a very high number. Relative to that, I get people being on Cade Cunningham. 13% owned is reasonable. He had a good game over the weekend. There'll be better days for him coming up. But because Ausar Thompson is doing a little bit of everything, and he's also shooting shittily. He might just shoot poorly forever, but he'll probably shoot a little bit better than this. Jalen Duren getting really good shots at the rim, putting up 1.5 fantasy points a minute with a great rebound rate. I like these guys more, and it seems in particular Cade losing some of the rebounding upside to Duren, kind of finally embracing the Andre Drummond role for him. That's what I think is hurting Cunningham the most in my data. But if Duren has a shitty day here and he's going to be pretty decently owned, I think it's logical to assume if you want to fade Duren and Ausar, just play Cade and be willing to pay that 10K price tag because it's basically baked in that if Duren and Ausar fail at their elevated price tags, it's probably because production flowed back Cade Cunningham's way. It could also be that Tobias Harris has a good day or something, but that's the way projections work. There's only one pie to go around, and when Jalen Duren's slice of pie gets a little bit smaller, that pie goes to Cade Cunningham, it goes to Tobias Harris, it could go to Karis LeVert, I guess. It could go to Isaiah Stewart as direct backup. But that production flows somewhere. So there's a lot of production assumed here for Duren and Ausar Thompson, but that's just how they've played so far this year. And also played well enough last year too, when they got reliable minutes and all that. Memphis, 115.8 implied points. Ja Morant will tell you to ask the coaches about who to play in DFS. And I'll tell you, I don't think you should play anybody. They all look awful here. Nobody even approaching a 5x projection. Total's pretty low too. Defensively, Detroit's a pretty good team, but not unbeatable here with a 113 defensive efficiency rating. So you're just not getting, or I'm not getting Morant. Stokastic, I don't think you're getting much of Morant either. Jaren Jackson, same thing. Memphis kind of seems like a mess. Obviously the Ja thing happening, it's easy to say that, but Ja's going to be, if he is trying to get off that team, he's going to be James Harden levels of toxic, and that's going to be something to watch out for that team with the total like cratering here for Memphis relative to what they normally get. Dallas, 106 implied points here. No AD opens up opportunity for everybody. Cooper Flagg really can't make shots right now. He's doing a little bit of everything still. Think he'll round into form as time goes on, but it might take a little bit. He is still 18. That's something. Or he might have just turned 19, but whatever. He's young. PJ Washington, another guy here who's played a ton of minutes, has been that sort of other big man point guard with Cooper Flagg. That's resulted in him getting a little more assists than he has normally. Still only averaging 0.9 fantasy points a minute, but he plays a ton of minutes and will rebound more with AD out. So I've been at a 34.4 projection, still only 7% ownership, which is with the field. D'Angelo Russell's the one getting the biggest uptick for his rates this year. He did play well last year too when he had actual court time, no matter what team he was playing on, and had usage and opportunity to go around. Now in Dallas, they seemingly are just saying, hey, go get your shot. And he's doing it with 30% usage, 40% assist rate, shooting poorly to start the year, but if he gets hot, it's tough to say he'll get hot against Houston. The opportunity will be there for him. So D'Angelo Russell, I don't know that I trust him a ton, but getting him at 30% if the field's at 13, with how he's played this year, like he could absolutely crater versus Houston, but he could also cook Reed Shepherd in the second unit, and that wouldn't be crazy because Dallas just needs somebody to score at this point. Nobody else on Dallas jumps out to me at even a little bit. Houston, 118.5 implied points on their side. Not really getting anybody here, but Amin Thompson, 15% expected ownership. Tari Eason, 17.5. These guys look okay, just not priorities for me. The team so far this year mostly going Şengün's way with 1.29 fantasy points per minute. Kevin Durant, your number 2 banana. But Amin Thompson down at 0.9. Not as good as he was historically. And that's something that could impact things, at a price tag that's still you're kind of paying last year's. He could spike random games upside. You're still paying that price tag from last year, it feels like, for Amin Thompson. Sacramento, we got no Malik Monk today. We have Q tags on Schroeder and Levine, I believe. So there's stuff that can move around here. Right now, Westbrook and Schroeder getting an uptick for me because of not having Malik Monk. A few more minutes, more guaranteed opportunity. The Keon Ellis can always take minutes away from Westbrook. They're basically playing 1-to-1 with their time on the court. If Levine's out, though, gonna get pretty limited in a way that's noteworthy. And it is a revenge game for Westbrook too. He did have one of his best days of the year going into OKC. Now he goes into Denver, who didn't want him and kind of shit talked him on the way out a little bit. That could mean something. Denver on their side, not a lot of Jokic ownership, but as I've mentioned, Jamal Murray's renaissance is somewhat hurting Jokic to start the year. Still 1.61 fantasy points a minute overall for the year. I would have him at 1.81 today with that longer-term performance last year still there. Jokic, I don't mind, though. On this slate, he and Giannis just not going to be played like the chalk often gets played here. Let's see. Jabari Smith, also a Q tag. Would you need full? Yes, it would. But, for right now, that's not on the data, and I assume guys play until they are not playing. The Christian Brown getting played by 10%. I think Jamal Murray still appeals to me the most here. He's outplaying last year's performance by a lot. You can see I have a 42.2 projection on Jamal Murray. Stokastic has him at 35.4. He's looked like playoff Jamal Murray to start the year. Has had a down game here or there, but I still think Murray, to me, eye test-wise and in the data, looks like the best version of Jamal Murray. Late games here, if you guys are going to play them, you can look at the screen. I don't know why LeBron's in the data set, but I'm sure they'll take him out at some point. Luka looking good. Reeves looking good. Portland, Drew Holiday, late slate looking pretty good because he's been killing it this year. Shaden Sharp, still going to get better at some point. Not been the start so far. Miami, nothing really to note here. You could hit me up as a super chat. Clippers, if you put it in, I probably would ask, but now you've framed it like that. Yes, as a super chat, you can. Or you can just pay for my data. That'd be even better. Then we don't have to ask each other anything. Clippers here, Harden, Kawhi, Zubac looking okay. Collins looking okay as well. Brook Lopez is a value for a late slate. You might play him. But that's how that looks right now. Let's go to Stokastic. We've gone the game-by-game view. Let's sim it out. Of course, guys, I appreciate all you guys watching live. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. Again, super chats are appreciated. I usually will answer your stuff if you just drop it in. But if you make it awkward and like asking for permission, pay people for their time. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Your support goes a long way for me here, so I can make some people pay for my time. And of course, I am here Monday to Friday at 2 p.m. doing the same process for NBA. I build out my projections, lovingly craft them as much as I can before the show. We come in, we see what Stokastic has without me involved. That's the process here. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Do all that stuff. And of course, check out Stokastic too. You are seeing their sim product on the screen. You also luckily got to see their data for free, though it's certainly going to change as the day goes on. That's what we do here. So make sure to go check out the updated versions of the data at Stokastic. You do all your 2v2s till your heart's content with their projections. 15% off, promo code SPLASH, link in the description. Go check that out. Thank you, S. Uzzer. I appreciate that. Never FanDuel. My projections work for FanDuel, though. Join the Squirt Squad VIP tier, and you can get those FanDuel projections right for yourself. Exportable directly to your FanDuel optimizer of choice. I just show you guys what I gamble on here, which is not FanDuel. And one day, DraftKings will pay me to gamble on their site. That's the dream. As opposed to just indirectly for best ball through Stokastic. Top ROI lineup. So this is not my data involved, just Stokastic data. So we'll see what the differences are. They got Ryan Rollins in the top ROI lineup right now, 102% ROI. The only one above 100 here, even though that doesn't matter that much. It's about the directional thing that the sim is giving you. We got Ryan Rollins, Cam Thomas, Tari Eason, Pascal Siakam, Yusuf Nurkic, D'Angelo Russell, Tobias Harris, Jalen Duren. So we are getting Duren here. We're getting Cam Thomas, them buying in on, he's got a 33% usage rate, so like he literally can hit any night. He just kind of sucks in general. Tobias Harris, never a fun click for me, even when all the Pistons are out, but he makes this lineup. Number 2 is a Ryan Rollins lineup as well. Peyton Pritchard makes this one. Asar Thompson, Tobias Harris again, Nurkic, D'Angelo Russell, there we go. Kevin Durant, not really on my radar for today. And Jalen Duren. So Duren coming up in the top, all of the top 10 almost. All right, Stokastic loves Jalen Duren. I am surprised by that. Number 3, Derek White, Christian Brown, Asar Thompson, Pascal Siakam makes this one. Nurkic again, D'Angelo Russell again, Josh Minot gets in, and Jalen Duren again. Number 4 is Derek White, Christian Brown, Asar Thompson, Karl Anthony Towns, Yusuf Nurkic, D'Angelo Russell, Tobias Harris, and Duren. Definitely some spots I disagree with, like Tobias Harris, Brown, I'm not really there. But I like the kind of Duren, Russell, Nurkic core they've got going. Number 5 ROI lineup for Stokastic data here. D'Angelo Russell, Tyrese Martin, Asar Thompson, Giannis, Yusuf Nurkic makes it, Peyton Pritchard, Josh Minot again, and Jalen Duren yet again. Highest ROI player, it's D'Angelo Russell. Only guy with a positive ROI on the slate. Number 2 is Jalen Duren. Number 3, Russell Westbrook. Number 4, Asar Thompson. Number 5, Najee Marshall. I don't get that one. 4K salary must work for some lineups to be my guess. I don't know. Top exposed players in Stokastic's top 150. Jalen Duren, 70% exposure, fields at 33. Normally, Stokastic not chasing a guy like Duren who is crushing so far to start the year, but they are here pretty heavy on Jalen Duren with a 40-point projection as well. D'Angelo Russell, also surprised to see Stokastic be this in on him. A tough matchup versus Houston, but 51% exposure. Fields at 13. Big stand in favor of D'Angelo Russell. Asar Thompson, 49% exposure. Fields at 27. Big stand in favor of Asar Thompson. Wonder if this is going to change, because this really feels like Stokastic with Duren and Asar. Where are they on Cade? Maybe just like Boston, like Detroit. Yeah, so they like Cade too. They just like everybody versus Memphis, it looks like. Yusuf Nurkic, 49% exposure, fields at 40. So positive stand on Nurkic after he did bust his chalk yesterday. Still think if you want to try and put Kevin Love in lineups over Nurkic, just a couple in a 20 max, I don't think that's a crazy thing, because if Nurkic gets in foul trouble, they might just play Love 20 minutes, and he is a good fantasy producer as well. And the Nurkic chalk is pretty pronounced. Peyton Pritchard, 46% exposure, fields at 32. Really big stands on Duren, Russell, Asar Thompson, Nurkic, Peyton Pritchard, and Derek White over 40% as well. Highest leverage guys, Jalen Duren, D'Angelo Russell, no surprises based on what we just saw. Asar Thompson, Peyton Pritchard, and Giannis. You're getting 12% more in the field with Giannis. He's in about a third of Stokastic's top 150 lineups. Negative leverage is Karl Anthony Towns. You're getting 12% less of the field, though he is still in 25% of lineups. Jalen Brunson, you are fading almost entirely. Negative 12% leverage. He's about a 12% owned play. Amin Thompson, negative 10% leverage. He is not fitting in well with this Houston offense so far, is what the data looks like. Under 1 fantasy point per minute. He can always spike steals or something against a Dallas team that has no real ball handlers, I guess. But, you know, he's getting faded for a reason. Quentin Jackson, this is going to be where we really go in contrast. Again, Stokastic data thinks Quentin Jackson's just a 3-and-D guy. Really encourage you guys, you saw the data. Watch the YouTube highlights, and I'm not like just watch highlights and you know basketball, but like just watch how he played, watch how like every possession was flowing through his hands. That might not happen every game. Like Siakam can take the ball away more, but that offense, like they beat Golden State, and they did it because largely Quentin Jackson distributed well and took shots at a decent clip. Jaden McDaniels, they're fading. They're just hurting me here with Jackson and McDaniels. A negative 7% leverage there. We'll do a hand build, but I can't imagine Stokastic is going to love what I'm going to put in here. But let's do it. Of course, this is like sort of the foreplay to me giving you guys my splash plays for the day because it's going to look pretty similar. But I'm going to put in Quentin Jackson right away. They're going to hate it because they have the projection much lower. Let me boost the projection a little bit. I'm just going to give him 27 here. So we'll split the middle between, and it's not even the middle really for me, but we'll split the middle between my projection and Stokastic so Quentin Jackson doesn't look like a total donkey play for them. We know the sim loves Nurkic and Duren. I also love those guys. So I'm just going to plunk them in. Shooting guard. Is Russell a shooting guard? Oh, Russell Westbrook is. Let's go D'Angelo Russell at guard. I'm gonna get in Minot. I think it's power forward only. Here's Minot. Who else do I feel like I need to have here? Michael Porter Jr. Who will take my forward spot. And then we got shooting guard, small forward, 8K left for these two spots. We got to use up some money then, huh? I'll go Markkanen. No, he's 8K. Shooting guard. I mean, there's a lot of money to leave on the table if I play Keontae George here. Let's give it a shot. Keontae George, we got three Jazz players in with Nurkic. Let's read this lineup here. We'll sim it out. I bet it's going to be negative. Quentin Jackson, Keontae George, Lowry Markkanen, Josh Minot, Yusuf Nurkic, D'Angelo Russell, Michael Porter, and Jalen Duren. The issue is that Stokastic doesn't like a few of these guys who are a few of my top plays. And I'm not going to try to rerun it. I don't have to please them. It's a robot. If you want to go in there, though, and use a single lineup simulator, it is a great tool to build your own lineups. You have to keep in mind, though, it is going to use its own projections as a jumping off point. Part of the promo code SPLASH, do check it out. And I appreciate the kind chats here. Thanks for the insight and entertainment, Spags. Enjoy your content. Good luck today. Thank you. Same to you as well. I appreciate the kind words as always. We'll give you guys my splash plays for the day, even though that lineup, again, probably should make it pretty obvious. Before I do that, though, one more ask for support here. Check out Stokastic. All the stuff you buy through the link in the description or using that promo code SPLASH gets you 15% off, number one, so that's the part of the deal for you. It's in perpetuity, so one of the better deals they have, because right now, don't believe they actually have any deals going, so check that out. But it does support me. Half the money you pay to Stokastic comes back to me, and that's a big way I'm able to do the show that I do. October was the best month I've had as an affiliate for them, so I'd really love to keep it going and keep building on that, because you never know as a solo proprietor like I am how the business is going to go. So please just keep clicking, signing up for memberships. If you're ready, membership, make a new email, get a new membership. Go do that. Join the Discord as well if you want access to my data. Join the Squirt Squad tiers down below too. You want to see the sheets I show you here on screen, you can get that version of it. You can also get my projections exportable for DraftKings, for FanDuel, for Underdog, and their battle royales. So check that out. And all right, splash plays. I mean, Quentin Jackson, I'm dying on that hill, as I've said. I do think Duren is another one. Stokastic with me on that. Makes me worry a little bit he'll get overplayed, but I like Duren a lot in my data. Yusuf Nurkic, the fact that he was shitty value yesterday, that keeps the ownership in check for the people that are playing NBA DFS every single day. But I think Nurkic projects too well to avoid, even though I will probably think of some ways, like if he doesn't make a lineup, do I try to play some Kevin Love? I might take that shot. Basically, if he doesn't play enough minutes, it's probably because Kevin Love or Kyle Anderson took a few minutes away. D'Angelo Russell, I would say, is a splash play. Who else? Josh Minot, still a splash play, even though the volume of play for him, I'm not going to go nuts on him. And if you could pay up for Giannis, I would put him in, but I'll definitely be paying up for that middle tier more. The guys you saw, I do like Brunson. I like Siakam. I like a lot of guys in that range. Scroll back and you'll get the idea. But I appreciate all you guys being here. Make sure to gamble responsibly. I said this on the NFL video today. With the crossover of NBA NFL, could sort of get away from you, I think. And I say this personal experience. Like I was thinking about it while, had a really good day in NFL yesterday. And it's like, well, NBA, you kind of go on swings. Being mindful of your bankroll, I think this time of year is important, especially if you're playing a bunch of NBA slates. I'm playing NBA 6 times a week, playing NFL 3 times a week. That's a lot. So just for you guys out there, just be mindful of what you're spending and just, don't go nuts. I know it's not the fun thing you want to hear, but it is always money time here. Gamble responsibly, but it is always money time here. It's important to say the gamble responsibly parts out loud too. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the channel here at Splash Play Bets, on Twitter at Splash Play Pod. If you want to see NFL Showdown content for today, check out my video on the at Splash Play Pod channel. I will also be on Stokastic's Live Before Live for NFL today, NBA Deeper Dive tomorrow, that I could plug that then. So check those out. But I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. And let's get Quentin Jackson right. Let's have him fucking go nuts, break the slate again, and nobody plays him. That's my dream for today. What's yours? We'll find out. I'll see you guys again soon. Good luck. Bye-bye. See ya.